But I say to you who are listening, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who asks of you. If anyone takes what is yours, do not ask for it back again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you expect to receive payment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners. To receive as much again, instead, love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be the children of the Most High. For he himself is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
I feel like I'm caught in one of those cell phone commercials, the "Can you hear me now?" So, last week we ended our sermon series, Does the Bible Really Say?, looking at phrases that people think are in the Bible, but as we discovered, aren't. Well, today we're beginning a new series called Yes, Jesus Really Said. We'll be examining statements that we'd prefer weren't in the Bible, but they are. And as followers of Christ, we have to not just deal with those statements, but live those statements. Today's focus is on one of Jesus' hardest. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who persecute you. Turn the other cheek. How many of you like those statements? How many of you, if you had the ability to rewrite the Bible, would leave those statements out if you could? We'll find that those aren't the only statements like this that Jesus taught us. What we want to say in response, we read those words time and again, and I know for probably most, if not all of you here today, you've read those words before. You've heard them read to you before. They've been preached on before. You've discussed them in Bible study before. And you've just sort of skipped over them before. I'm reading them and they're there, but really, Jesus? You've got to be kidding, right? Or, Jesus, that's fine for you, but you don't understand what I'm going through, right? And then, of course, we're uncomfortably hit with the truth that Jesus was falsely arrested, beaten, humiliated, and ended up on a cross. What do we do with that? Right? When we hear these words, we do sort of a double take, because at first we think it's a joke and we start to laugh, and then all of a sudden we realize Jesus isn't laughing. He's serious. So I'm going to be honest for a moment. Well, I try to be honest all the time, but I'm really going to be honest for a moment, right? I don't want to love my enemies. Of course, if I'm quibbling, I might say that I don't know if I truly have enemies. Enemies is a strong word, right? But that's not what Jesus was talking about. Jesus wasn't talking about somebody who declares themselves to be an enemy, because there are people I dislike. There are people I disagree with. And, I know this is really hard to believe, there are people who dislike or disagree with me. Right? Calling them my enemy may seem a bit harsh, but they're people I don't want to love. In my worst moments, when I'm at my worst, I may not say this out loud, but I want to see them suffer. I want to see them humiliated. I want to see them fail, because that's what they deserve. In my better moments, I'm okay with ignoring them, pretending they don't exist. You know the saying, they are dead to me? Right? Then when they get what they deserve, or more accurately, what I think they deserve, right? I can sit back and gloat. That's human nature. So if you feel that way, you're not alone. But Jesus says none of that behavior is appropriate for his followers. It's not an option. See, Jesus phrased it as a command. In the Greek, it's in the imperative, like it has an exclamation point behind it. This is what you do if you follow me. It's not a suggestion. We are to love others, even those who hate us, even those who make fun of us, even those who despise us, even those who curse us, even those who make fun of us, even those who steal from us. How do we do that? How? You know, I said that first and foremost, that word enemy can be misleading. I can easily fool myself into believing I don't have enemies because I don't use that word. But now we get to the deer in the headlights moment. Because I don't like to use the word hate either, right? I don't really want to say I hate other people. But I can always say something like, well, they're not my favorite person, right? They irritate me a little bit. See how I qualify? I qualify it just like I want to qualify the word love. Well, I'm a Christian. I love everybody. But do I? You know, when we talk about disliking people or being irritated by people, we don't, at least most people in the church, do anything so obvious as outwardly curse people or outwardly mistreat them, not in any socially unacceptable way, but in more subtle ways. Maybe I just secretly wall them off in my heart and close my eyes to them. Maybe I, not in front of them, of course, but laugh at them a little bit. Or maybe I don't laugh directly at them, but if somebody else tells a joke at their expense, I chuckle a little bit about that. Maybe I make snide remarks or find ways to insult them, or just smile or hit the like button when somebody else does that. After all, I'm not really saying that. Maybe I engage in a little bit of judgment. Ever kind of slipped into that trap? And here comes Jesus telling me I'm wrong. Now, if we could just stop here, I'd kind of be okay. If Jesus had just stopped, but did you notice Jesus doesn't stop? He just keeps talking. And that's the part, because I can probably learn, if I really work hard at it, I can learn to stop laughing at people or insulting people. But here comes the thing. Jesus isn't satisfied with the absence of negatives. There's a thought. He's not satisfied with us just not engaging that kind of behavior. He wants us to then do things that show our love. He expects me, he expects us, by the way, because you're in this with me, to love and love in concrete ways. Just saying the word love isn't enough. Turn the other cheek. Be generous in giving even to those who aren't thankful or those who might take advantage. Don't just keep your mouth shut. You know, my mom used to say, you know, what? If you don't have anything good to say, then, right? That's one that, by the way, is not in the Bible. Because Jesus says that's not good enough. It's not good enough to just not say something. That's a negative. Now you have to turn it around and say something. Bless them. Pray for them. Really? Jesus? How do we do that? Does Jesus want us to be perpetual doormats? I don't think so. How are we supposed to respond when, especially when, someone's words or actions hurt us or hurt others? How do we be truthful to the gospel? Because Jesus also said things like, speak for those who can't speak for themselves. Speak against oppression and injustice. But love. And there's the paradox. There's the difficult situation that we find ourselves in. The second lesson is that just as the word enemy can be misleading, so can the word love. In Greek, the word for love that Jesus has used here is one that you may have heard. If you only have a very small Greek vocabulary, you may have heard of the word agape. Agape love. That's not the same love between spouses. That's not the same love between parent and child, or parent and grandchild, or great-grandchild. Right? Agape is a sacrificial, unconditional love that goes against natural human instinct. We have to fight against it, but it's demonstrated through action rather than emotion. In other words, Jesus doesn't say that you have to have warm, fuzzy feelings about everyone you encounter and run up to hug everybody. But he does say you have to find ways to love them and show your love. It's a love that's based in God's love for us. It's not about condoning injustice, agreeing with everyone, or inviting home for dinner those who aren't friendly toward you, right? But it's about breaking cycles of hate and retaliation by choosing a higher standard. Jesus provides examples of how this love should be lived. Respond to hatred with kindness, words of kindness, and acts of goodwill, rather than retaliation. Offer positive words and wishes for flourishing to those who speak ill of you or others. Engage in prayer for those who have wronged or attacked you or others. Now remember, Jesus said you can pray, by the way, that they change. You can pray that God touches their heart. You can pray that they see the love of God for them and they change. Because the truth is, we have experienced the same thing in our lives. So we pray. De-escalate violence. Avoid revenge. Remind people of God's love and peace. What does this look like in real life for us? Well, the Hebrew word that describes it is a word, just as I said, you might know the Greek word agape. Here's a Hebrew word, shalom. Shalom is sharing that well-being, that peace that only God can bring. It's not dependent on circumstances. Right? Shalom is dependent on God. It doesn't mean giving up fighting against injustice or defending what is right. It means to do so without resorting to hate, anger, or words of division. It's a command that calls for a deliberate act of will because it's not natural. Our natural inclination is to want to strike out. And Jesus tells us to fight against that. Because true discipleship reflects Christ's love. It's a divine and difficult love which underscores an uncomfortable human truth, as Jesus tells us in this passage from the Sermon on the Plain in Luke 6. We're good at loving those who love us. We're good at giving to those who give to us. We're not good at loving or giving to everyone else. In Leviticus 19:8, God told the people of Israel to love their neighbors as themselves. And they took that command seriously. But by Jesus' time, they had taken that command and warped its meaning. See, they narrowed the definition of the word neighbor to those who look like them, talk like them, ate like them, dressed like them, worshiped like them, and was one of them. Anyone else was not a neighbor. And because the command to love your neighbor didn't include your not neighbor, they were free to not just not love them, but free to hate them, ignore them, ridicule, judge, or despise those people. Ever notice how we divide ourselves by two simple words in the language, in the English language? We have, if I were to divide the sanctuary in half, I'm on this side. We have us versus them. And they have us versus them. Every time we define ourselves by particular titles or words that divide, we fall into that us versus them category. And that's what was done in Jesus. There was the us, which, by the way, for the Jews of Jesus' time was a very small us. And then there was the them. The problem is, in 2,000 years, we haven't learned anything different. Even sinners love those who love them, Jesus said. So we're called to love, motivated by God's character, not by the merits of the one who we're called to love. In personal relationships, with a difficult family member or friend, it might be responding to harsh words or criticisms, because let's face it, family and friends know how to say things that hurt us the most, don't they? They know the trigger points. And so we respond with grace instead of defensiveness. We don't have to agree, but we choose not to respond in anger. And later we can even pray for that person, asking God to bless them and heal the pain in their life that may be causing them to say and do what they're doing. It might be responding to rudeness with a smile and a genuine, not sarcastic, have a great day. Right? I know, because I've been in the South. I've heard some of the words that are said in sarcasm. How many of you heard, well, bless your heart? Does that mean bless your heart? No. Right? Well, bless your heart, said in the South, means you're as dumb as that rock over there, and somebody better bless you because you're incapable of figuring anything out on your own. Right? I've had people say that to me, well, bless your heart. Right? And I want to say bless you too, but not in the Christian sense. An act of kindness can disarm hostility and open the door for a better relationship. It might be forgiving instead of holding a grudge, which, by the way, does not mean allowing continued hurt. It just means letting go of bitterness so you can heal. It might be instead of responding to hateful or divisive online comments, but taking a moment to recognize the humanity behind the screen. By refusing to engage, we disempower hatred. It's taking a stance against injustice and oppression, but by speaking words of love and leaving judgment to God. We can love without enabling. We can forgive and pray from a distance without trusting the one who's harmed us. We can bless others while still keeping boundaries intact. Jesus' final verses in Luke 6 give us the why behind this radical command. He begins with a series of reminders. He reminds us that God is also kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. The rain falls and the sun shines on the just and unjust alike. We who aren't now and never have been perfect have been shown God's love and grace. So how can we withhold that from others? He reminds us that if we love our enemies, our reward will be great. And he's not just talking about heaven. He's talking about a transformation of our hearts. It's one of those backwards things that Jesus says all the time that can drive us nuts. You know, when he says, if you give up for your life for my sake, you'll gain it. And here he says, if we let go and love with abandon, don't worry about whether the other person receives it. Don't worry about whether the other person's grateful. Don't worry about whether the other person's taking advantage of it. Because what happens is a change in our heart that makes us whole and brings us closer to God. It's a backward way of looking at love. In the end, Jesus promises that love changes everything because it changes us. We trust God to ultimately set things right, and we free ourselves from the cycle of revenge. We imitate Christ in love. At its core, what Jesus wants for us is that we don't allow our anger, dislike, resentment, desire for revenge, or other emotions to pollute our hearts and souls. All that being said, today's gospel reading is asking a lot, isn't it? Archbishop Desmond Tutu, he died a few years ago of cancer, but his legacy lives on primarily because he was a follower of Christ who found a way to live these words. He served, as you know, as a leader in South Africa during the struggle to dismantle apartheid. And he made a lot of enemies along the way. Now, when I say he made a lot of enemies, many he didn't make. They just hated him for the color of his skin. But many others felt threatened by his dreams and his words. And what made him such a great example of today's gospel reading is how he treated his enemies. Bishop Tutu never became bitter or hateful. He didn't deviate from what the Bible taught him to love and to forgive. In an interview shortly before his death, he was asked how he was able to live by these challenging words of Jesus. And his answer, he said, I have a simple answer and a complicated answer. And he said, here's the simple answer. I hold on, and often only by the skin of my teeth, to believe that God is in charge of the world. God is in charge of his world, in spite of all appearances to the contrary. In his memoir, No Future Without Forgiveness, he did talk about how it's also complicated. He said it's not about pretending that things are other than they are. It's not about turning a blind eye to the wrong. It exposes the awfulness, the abuse, the hurt, the truth. It's a risky undertaking, but in the end worthwhile, because in the end, only an honest confrontation with reality can bring about real healing. It's not about forgetting. It's about remembering and not using your right to hit back. It's a second chance for a new beginning. Which brings us to the how. do you believe, really believe, not lip service, do you really believe God is in charge of his world? Because that's the only way, folks, that we can live this out. We can't do it on our own. We have to believe that God is in control for us to love our enemies, to pray for those, to bless those, to turn the other cheek, and to forgive. In closing, God's dream, Bishop Tutu once said, is that you and I and all of us will realize that we are family, that we are made for togetherness, for goodness, and for compassion. See, it's not a reality yet, but this is God's dream, shared with us in these words of Christ, and it needs to become our dream as well. God's dream for us is real because God's only begotten Son died on the cross for us. The world will know that we are followers of Christ by our love for one another, but the world will be convinced of God's love for all when we love our enemies, just as Jesus taught us to do. To the glory of God. Amen. So I invite you to stand now.